Today, we are diving deep into the incredible story of Ghana. We're talking about its journey from being a British colony to becoming the very first independent nation in sub-Saharan Africa. It's really a powerful story of resistance, revolution, and a truly monumental dream.
So we're going to tell this whole story over a single, continuous visual. And right at the center of it all is the Black Star of Africa. It's this powerful symbol of Ghanaian sovereignty and a beacon of hope for Pan-African unity. It's going to be our anchor as we go through this.
All right, let's get into the first chapter. You know, the seeds of resistance, they weren't really sown on a battlefield. Nope. It all started in the meeting rooms of a new class of educated African elites who began to question and challenge colonial power.
This timeline really shows you the slow, methodical buildup. See, it kicks off way back in 1897 with the ARPS, who were focused on one thing: protecting their land from the British. From there, it grew into broader calls for reform, and then finally into a direct demand for self-government when the UGCC was founded in 1947 by the nation's lawyers and intellectuals. Now, the UGCC, led by thinkers like J.B. Dankwa, they started with a pretty gradual approach. Their motto kind of says it all: self-government in the shortest possible time. So the plan was to negotiate, to push for constitutional reform, a careful, managed transition. But that phrase, shortest possible time, was about to be challenged big time.
And here's why. Because in 1947, this young, incredibly charismatic activist named Kwame Nkrumah shows up. He was actually invited back to be the general secretary of the UGCC, but he brought with him this radical urgency that was going to completely change the pace and the entire nature of the independence movement.
So the stage is set. What started as this elite-led negotiation is about to explode into a full-blown mass movement. You have to remember, the years right after World War II were volatile. Promises made to African soldiers who fought for the British, broken. And the economic hardship everywhere created a real powder keg of discontent. And in 1948, that powder keg found its spark. A group of unarmed ex-servicemen marched in Accra to demand the pensions and jobs they were promised. The colonial police opened fire, killing 29 of them. This single act of violence just ignited the Accra Riots, and anti-colonial fury spread like wildfire across the country. Well, the British needed someone to blame, and they pointed the finger right at the UGCC. They arrested the entire leadership, Nkrumah included, a group that would go down in history as the Big Six. But in doing that, they accidentally turned these political leaders into national heroes, into martyrs. And what's so fascinating is what happened while they were in prison. A crack started to appear. The old guard of the UGC, the intellectuals, they still wanted to talk, to negotiate. But for Nkrumah, the riots proved that gradualism was a total dead end. He changed his tune completely, demanding not self-government in the shortest possible time, but self-government now. This split wasn't just a disagreement, it was a fundamental break. On June 12, 1949, Nkrumah walked away and formed his own party, the Convention People's Party, the CPP. And this wasn't some party for the elites. No, this was a mass movement for the youth, for workers, for farmers. This was truly the People's Party. And the creation of the CPP, well, that was the final piece of the puzzle. It set the stage for a direct, populist, and frankly, unstoppable showdown with the colonial government. This was the final push that would change the political landscape for good. The British tried to get a handle on the situation, so they called the Gold Coast's first ever general election in 1951. And Nkrumah, he was in jail again for his political activities. But get this, he ran for office from his prison cell. And the result was a jaw-dropping landslide victory for the CPP. The British governor had absolutely no choice. He had to release Nkrumah and name him the leader of government business. After 6 long years of governing under British supervision, the moment finally came. At midnight, March 6, 1957, the colony of the Gold Coast was no more. In its place, the sovereign nation of Ghana was born. And in his independence speech, Nkrumah just perfectly captured the weight of that moment, not just for Ghana, but for everyone. But you see, for Kwame Nkrumah, Ghana's independence was never, ever the final goal. It was just the beginning. It was the first step in a much, much grander vision, the total liberation and unification of the entire African continent, freeing it from economic dependency. For him, Ghana's freedom was pretty much meaningless unless it was linked to the freedom of all of Africa.
And he tastes this huge vision on two fronts at the same time. Politically, he made Accra the capital of Pan-Africanism, hosting conferences and building alliances like the Ghana-Guinea-Mali Union. And economically, he launched a massive, state-led project to industrialize Ghana and finally break that old colonial cycle of just exporting raw materials.
And I mean, you really have to grasp the sheer scale of this ambition. Under his 7-year development plan, Nkrumah's government set up over 300 state-owned companies and factories all across the country. This was a blueprint for what true economic independence could look like. And just look at the breadth of that vision. Ghana was building everything. They were processing their own sugar, canning their own fruit, weaving their own textiles. They even created a national shipping line to move their own goods. For a little while there, Ghana was this shining example. It was the envy of the developing world.
But this incredible period of progress, this dream of a self-reliant Africa, it was about to be cut short in the most sudden and brutal way you can imagine.
On February 24, 1966, while Nkrumah was literally on the other side of the planet on a peace mission to Vietnam, the military seized power. It was a coup d'etat. And here's the kicker. We now know from declassified documents that this was aided by a covert propaganda campaign from Western intelligence agencies. Why? Because during the Cold War, they saw Nkrumah's socialist and Pan-African vision as a serious threat.
The new military regime, and pretty much all the governments that came after, immediately started to tear down Nkrumah's legacy. Those ambitious industrial projects were dismissed as wasteful white elephants. The factories were abandoned, and the country just spiraled into decades of political instability and economic ruin.
This freefall really picked up speed in the 1980s. Under pressure from the IMF and the World Bank, Ghana went through structural adjustment, basically a massive privatization program that sold off over 300 of those state companies. And you can see it right here in the numbers. Manufacturing's share of the economy just collapsed. It was rapid deindustrialization.
The result was just a tragic reversal. Ghana went from being a nation that was building its own future to one that was dependent on imports. It's a powerful, cautionary tale that really hammers home this point from economist Ha-Joon Chang. It's a reminder that for a lot of nations, the path to prosperity isn't just about open markets, it's about protection and strategic investment.
You know, in the end, Ghana's story, it's so much more than just history. It's this stark reminder of a powerful dream that was deferred, a bold vision of self-reliance and unity that was abandoned, not because it failed economically, but for political reasons. And that really leaves us with a final provocative question to think about. And it's a thought that resonates way beyond Ghana, right? It speaks to any nation anywhere in the world that's still fighting to achieve true sovereignty.